Welcome to the History of the Philadelphia Eagles, Episode 1. We're going to go back to a time when the Eagles didn't exist. Back to 1920s Philadelphia. And I'm going to explain how the Philadelphia Eagles came to be in the early stages of the NFL. So to understand what was going on in the 1920s, you have to understand what people were doing. Number one, Philadelphians all belonged to athletic clubs. This was not strange to any other city. Everybody belonged to an athletic club. And these clubs had different ways of entertaining its members. It was all local businesses that supported the clubs, and they were like country clubs. And every neighborhood had one. And every neighborhood had its own team, including Frankfurt. Yes, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets were the first Philadelphia-based professional sports franchise in terms of for football. They got their start after they basically mopped up the competition around Philadelphia. They would play the Union Quakers and the South Philly teams and teams in Southwest Philadelphia. And a lot of these teams even continued to operate as semi-pro teams for years to come. My own grandfather played for the team in Southwest Philadelphia for many years, into the 1940s and 50s. So, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets were this franchise. And they ended up, after mopping up the competition around Philadelphia, getting to represent Philadelphia on the national stage. There was the Pottsville Maroons, there was an Atlantic City team at the time, there was the dreaded New York Giants, and there was the Chicago Bears. And Frankfurt competed against the rest of them. They had this really cool program that exists till today that kind of shows what their uniforms sort of looked like. That was their logo, as you saw before, with the YFJ, and it stood for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and it was the symbol of the athletic club in Frankfurt, Philadelphia. If you've ever heard of the Market Frankfurt L, that's the other end of the Market Street L line. It ends in the Frankfurt section of Philadelphia. And so, the biggest problem and why the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, despite major success in 1926, they won the championship for the entire NFL. In 1925, they were a part of the reason why, if you ask people from Pottsville if the Maroons won the NFL championship, they say they did. The Chicago Cardinals, they say they did. If you want to know more about that, let me know in the comments. But the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets won in 1926, but they weren't drawing crowds. They were playing in big-time stadiums after the Frankfurt facility was destroyed. The Baker Bowl, but this was all at a large expense, and finally after 1931, they just folded. And that's how the Philadelphia Eagles came to be. But there was a major problem. If you know anything about Philadelphia, and you know anything about Pennsylvania, it was founded by Quakers. And Quakers were not okay with anybody doing anything on Sundays. These were called the Pennsylvania Blue Laws. And when the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets folded, the NFL decided it wasn't going back into Pennsylvania. So these two men, Burt Bell and Lud Ray, Burt on the right, Lud Ray on the left, they had to first convince the state legislature of Pennsylvania to get rid of the blue laws so that way they could play games on Sundays. So once they were able to do that, they paid the NFL $2,500 for the rights to the Philadelphia area. They did not buy the Yellow Jackets. It's a common misconception. Many people believe that the Philadelphia Eagles bought the Yellow Jackets. They did not. Burt and Ludd, they bought their own franchise. It was to the area of Philadelphia that Frankfurt originally owned. They bought those rights. So in 1933, coming off the success of President Roosevelt's New Deal, they took the logo, the mighty eagle, and created the Philadelphia Eagles that we know today. Come back next time when I tell you about the 1930s Philadelphia Eagles and the start to our beloved franchise.